Hi everybody and welcome to another edition of Race Day Preview with me, Gavin Faretra. I'm Dave D'Onofrio of the Concord Monitor. Gavin, this week the Sprint Cup Series moves to the quarter pole of the season already. Last week Denny Hamlin gets his second win in 3 weeks. He had knee surgery in the middle. I mean, how impressive is that?
It's totally impressive. I mean, it's remarkable, really. I mean, now given the fact that I've never had knee surgery or driven a race car, I don't know, but the fact that both of those things seem to be major deals. I've known people who have had knee surgeries. We look at Wes Welker. Who knows when he's going to be back? And we're seeing a guy go out there. His left knee too, which is what you're usually going with the clutch and everything like that. So I think it's thoroughly impressive what he's been able to do to not only go out and run all those laps, but to win 2 races.
That's the point I was going to make. Just picture yourself taking a 2-hour drive somewhere. You know, maybe this weekend you're going up to Maine or something. And when you get out of the car, I guarantee you're stretching your legs out. You're a little bit sore. You're a little bit stiff. I think it just speaks to the fact that these guys are athletes.
Yeah, and you're not driving with probably as tense as he would be.
Shaking.
Exactly. I mean, it's just the force of that car. I mean, it's a totally different dynamic than driving up to Maine. But by your point, you are getting out of the car, stretching, and stuff's hurting. So very impressive what he's been able to do, and just speaks to, like you just said, they are athletes.
A lot of stress, a lot of strain on the body that I don't think most people realize when just watching it on TV and thinking, oh, they're just riding in ovals for 4 hours.
Going around the circle.
It's not that simple. With Hamlin's 2 wins, is Joe Gibbs coming back a little bit? Kyle Busch up to 6th in points. If the chase were to be seated this week, they have all 3 drivers in. Are they back?
It's an interesting question because I like that you said a little bit, because I don't think they're all the way back. But I think what we're seeing is a different dynamic with the team this year. We got Kyle Busch in 6th, and it almost has that feeling like he's looked at the last 2 years and said, you know what, I'm going to do the old conservative approach, just get myself into the chase, and then see what I can do and do my damage. Maybe he gets tired. I don't know. For the last 12 races, 10 races of the season, the last couple of years, he hasn't been very good. So maybe he's just kind of floating along, getting himself in position, then he's going to strike. We see Hamlin 2 wins. Maybe he's taken that Kyle Busch spot as far as being the guy that brings home the bacon with the wins every week. And Logano's just learning from them, maybe learning from their mistakes. He's got 2 young but very talented drivers in front of him. So they're in good position right now. Not all the way back, but very impressive so far.
You hit on the talent there, and I think that's where you have to evaluate this team. There is a ton of talent in that stable. Yet Kyle Busch only 1 top 5 so far this year. Hamlin's only 2 top 10s were both wins. Logano has only led 3 laps this year. They're young. They're coming. They're almost there, but I don't think that they're back on the level of a Hendrick, say, yet.
Yeah, and what an interesting situation this weekend with Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson. And I know we talked about it in private earlier, just kind of looking at that. And maybe we made it out to be a bigger deal than it really is. But you look at those 2 guys, and they are the faces of NASCAR right now. And to see them kind of, hitting each other and bumping on the track, it was actually kind of cool to see that, because you kind of look at them and think that they're just untouchable. You can't do anything, and I think maybe Jeff Gordon was giving him a little nudge, saying, "Look, you are the man, but I'm still here."
The other thing is that those 2 guys in particular are so copacetic, and their relationship has always been kind of so boring and plain.
Exactly.
That I think people will maybe gravitate towards that a little bit more because it is different, like you said.
Yep.
And there'll be some personality here with 2 of the sport's all-time greats.
Yeah, and I think that is an important thing to look at, because they are such unique characters, and I just thought it was kind of a neat thing. I don't know what people are thinking outside, but for me, I just thought it was they were alive for once. I mean, they just seemed so deadpan with everything, and that's what makes them so talented. So don't get me wrong. I mean, Jimmy Johnson, by far the best driver we have right now, but it was neat to see them kind of go at it.
It's got a little bit of wrestling to it too, where there's these 2 guys, they were tag team partners, for lack of a better term, and now all of a sudden one maybe is getting a little disgruntled with the other, and who knows where that leads. Yeah, if there's a feud coming up, I think it's a good thing for NASCAR in my opinion.
Sure, absolutely.
Could Hendrick, speaking of Hendrick, could they be headed towards something too big? You look at they have 4 cars now. Casey Kane, for all accounts, is in the fold. He's part of their future, which means they have to account for him in some way. They have the Stewart-Haas team. They build engines for them, give them support. So effectively, you're talking about 7 guys now, maybe 8 next year.
Mm-hmm.
Is that too much to focus on? Last year we saw with Childress, they went to 4 teams. It proved too much. Nobody made the chase. It just didn't work out. Is too much a potentially bad thing?
I say no because of who it is. Childress, yes, 4 teams too many. Hendrick, he should own all the teams because they are so solid right through the lineup. I mean, Dale Jr. has his problems, but I think that's more of just kind of him working things out and trying to figure out whether he is an elite driver or not. But the fact that you have Stewart, you have Newman. I mean, you have all of these guys that are in that stable, so to speak, and the more the better because it's just going to make for better racing and better cars. And I think for me, I don't think it's too many.
Yeah, my only question is the communication issue. When you have that much information coming in,
sure,
and then that much to boil down and get out, who knows where the breakdown could come.
Sure.
Who to watch this week? I'm going with the guy who everybody was watching at this race last year, Carl Edwards. They were watching him because his car was in the air, off the fence. I think this is a huge week for him. Like we said in the past, he has not let it get a lap yet this season. Only driver in the top 25 points that can say that. I think he needs to come here and get his revenge for last year by winning the race.
Yeah, and get himself kick-started into the season because he's in neutral right now. We haven't seen him do anything. And the guy I'm going to be watching is Greg Biffle for the simple reason that I don't think we've talked about him at all this year.
No.
And right now, 3rd in points, 2 top 5s, 7 top 10s. I mean, the guy's rolling along. He's got himself in a perfect position at this point to get himself. We're a long way from the chase, I realize, but getting himself where he needs to be. I mean, just let's watch him this week and see if he can keep it rolling.
He's a guy who could fit in the category of sleeper for an entire season
sure,
because he's consistent enough that he gets in the chase. The chase tracks suit him pretty well, and yet nobody ever talks about it.
Right.
He's not my sleeper this week. My sleeper this week is kind of way off the board. Elliott Sadler. You look at his history at Talladega, he's got the 5th most points out of anybody there at the last 3 races. That RPM team is in shambles. Kane's leaving. They don't know where they're headed. But I think that for 1 week, Elliott Sadler could put something together.
Sure, I like that. You definitely went off the board there. And I'm going to go with Dale Jr. just in the sense that he has 5 wins here. I didn't know he had that many in his career. So the fact that he has done well here in the past, but hasn't done well recently in most races, with 2nd at Daytona, but I think that's about all he's done. So I would look at him this week as maybe someone that can get himself kick-started again.
Junior's no sleeper for me, as you see here. He is on my fantasy team this week. Starting off with Tony Stewart, I think that he took some accountability last week for causing that wreck at Texas, and I think that this week he's going to come back and try to prove that, yeah, Newman won 2 weeks ago, I was his owner, that was great, but I'm still a driver too. I think he's going to make a point of that this weekend. Then on my B list, I have Junior and Brad Keselowski, who scored the most points at Talladega a season ago out of any driver, won a race there. And on the C list, I'll go with Bobby Labonte because he's old and he might know what he's doing.
You just got to roll with the C list.
Yeah,
sometimes you just flip the coin. And I did that, and I went with Scott Speed because I had Bobby Labonte also. I went with the young gun there, and I'll see what he can do this week. My 2 B list guys are going to be, I'd call him a sleeper, but I think he can do well here. Maybe get himself a top 10 if he's not going to win. Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Jamie Murray, Superspeedway. You saw what he did at Daytona, so maybe he can get himself back on the map here. And I'm going to go with Jimmy Johnson, kind of a boring pick, but I think one that I desperately need as far as fantasy is concerned.
Yeah, you can see there that it's a one-sided race at this point. But as I said to start, we're only a quarter way through the year, so we'll see. On to winners now. Again, I'm not sleeping on Junior. I wouldn't call him a sleeper. 4th most points at Talladega last year, 4th most for the last 2 years. He's led in 8 consecutive races there, and in his career, he's led 18 out of the 20 times he started. He's got 5 wins there, as Gavin mentioned. None of them have been since 04, but he's solid enough this year that I think he will win this restricted plate race.
Good pick, because it'll make me look good if he ends up winning. So I'm going to go with Kyle Busch. I'm not going to throw a bunch of stats at you, but I have a feeling that probably this week he gets himself back into contention. He's in 6th right now, and sitting back and watching his teammate win the 2nd time in 3 weeks, I think it's going to tick him off a little bit, and we know what he can do when he's mad. So he's either going to be last or he's going to be first. We'll see which one comes up.
A Junior win or a Kyle Busch win are good for NASCAR. We'll be here to talk about that next week. Thanks for joining us.
Take care.